most refugees and migrant communities in Australia, parenting brings some challenges. In particular, African family values are different from the Australian family values, and this may often result in conflict between parents and children. My name is Daniel. I work for Multicultural Health Services, Western Sydney Local Districts. I'm privileged to present to you Rich Cultures Should Have Rich Relationships project, a partnership between Sudanese, South Sudanese communities and Multicultural Health Services.
South Sudanese Australians are negotiating two worlds. While holding up the traditional South Sudanese culture, children are integrating into Australian culture, creating more conflicts and misunderstanding.
In Sudanese or African family tradition, raising a child sits within the context of family. In this context, a family comprised of parents, children, grandparents, uncle, aunties, and neighbors.
When it comes to raising the kids within the family, it's not only a mother and father who raise the kids. It is the entire family and extended family, including the relatives that are quite distant relatives, and also the entire neighbors can contribute to raising the family. The entire family will look after the child and raise the child, not only a father and mother. So this structure is missing here in Australia. So now it is the father and mother who will be responsible for raising the kids or the child in the family.
Intergenerational conflict often arises from misunderstanding of rights and responsibilities among family members. For young people in particular, it can be around their autonomy and freedom they should have in Australia. These conflicts can result into child-parent relationship difficulties, psychological issues among family members, and school problems among young people.
At times, there are decisions that parents undertake that impact on well-being of their children. Example, moving suburb, states, or territory.
So the decision to move the house was discussed as a family. We said we're going to move out from here, but it's not going to be close to Auburn. But my son said, look, I don't want to move school. For us, we said, okay, if there's not, you can move to a close by school so that you don't need to write it by morning. But he said, no, I want to keep my old school. And we said, okay, that's fine. You will take responsibility for waking up early, and maybe only one time or two times we can take you, but you need to make sure that you take responsibility, and you did exactly that.
On the household that you are in, whereas, for example, for me, I live with just my mum, and basically she allows me to make decisions. However, as a Sudanese female, and given my age, decision making really isn't something that I would usually be provided with.
After coming to Australia, parents from South Sudan background encounter a new culture different from their own, and this may always bring some challenges in terms of parenting skills.
There are certain things in the Australian culture that I don't agree with. So like the way of freedom in this country, as they say that the child, when they reach age of 18, they are free to do whatever they do. I do not agree with that term.
Decision making in our household is very important because it determines where you go in your life. So everything that happens in your family, that also reflects like your outside life. And so if you're able to make decisions within your family, so for example, if your family wants to move to a different suburb, that can affect you because if you do move to a different suburb, that means you're leaving things like a school behind, your friends, something that you're familiar with, and these all can affect an individual.
I make my kids understand that freedom is not that you do whatever you wanted to do. You still have to go with respecting your parents, and also think before you do.
Giving a young person, or just having them involved, just to sit down and even just to listen. I think they can feel like they're being involved. But if a decision is made without them being not there, and then they might feel a certain type of way.
The environment also has changed a lot. The way we raise our kids back in our country has to change, and there's a lot of pressure here. We are living in the 21st century. Kids today no longer need parent or father and mother to get information. You can see young people, even from the preschools, are learning to get information from iPads, iPhones, internet, and everything. So they are well advanced than the parents themselves. So parents are considered to be computer illiterate, maybe, or they don't have that much information. So the information itself that young people or children consume on a day-to-day basis require change of parenting style.
This country, there are good and there are bad. If you allow your child to just explore the world by themselves, they may get lost. But if you're there with them in every step that they are taking, it means that you are actually practicing your parenting skills. Because being a parent is not an easy thing. It's something that needs a lot of commitment. To commit yourself as a parent, whether you are a dad or a mom, you need to show the support to your kids.
Mom and Dad, I understand that you expected me to grow up as a good child. I understand that being a girl is no longer a barrier to my education as compared to my age mates back home in South Sudan. I understand that you expected me to study and succeed at school like any other child in my class. However, I feel that there are times you expect me to eventually get married before I can achieve my education and fulfill my dreams. Also, Mom and Dad, while you valued my educational achievements, you also expected me to do house chores such as cleaning, cooking, and looking after my siblings. Mom and Dad, I tell you, it was very hard to balance household expectations with my studies, particularly when I was sitting my HSC. Mom and Dad, this doesn't mean I don't want to help with house chores, but I would love it if you understood that what I'm doing requires a balance as well as greater support from the both of you.
You can hear a parent always saying, I want my child to be a doctor, I want my child to be an engineer, I want my child to be this. Kids have their own identity, they have their own interest, and it is for the best interest to guide them to achieve whatever they desire, not really what we want as parents. So instead of wanting them to be someone else that they don't really want to be, it's better we guide them through the interest and motivation, that what is really motivating them is not what the parents really want. It's better to consult with the young person and ask them question, what is your interest? And then they can plan the activity that align with their interest and help them to go through to achieve those desired goals. This is the best way we can move our kids to and prepare them for the future.
For my kids, I'm expecting to be successful in the future as a parent, and that's what every parent dream, I think. So every parents would want their kids to achieve, their future life. So for myself, I think that what I want to see is the seeds of the way that I brought up my kids, because I have given them the support that they needed. So I wanted to see that shining in their life.
Well, I think as you can see here in Australia, I guess it can be different from maybe in Africa or particularly in South Sudan. Here, I expect, for my family, especially for my family, to be understanding, because sometimes as a young person you can make mistakes, and sometimes what you need from your parents is understanding. I feel that is very important, and also just always encouraging and also having the resources to make a young person succeed.
Here in Australia, I took something like support, and I see the way that a kid can reach their dreams is through the support from their parents.
When I was young, I used to love playing soccer. By the time I used to go to soccer training. That time, nobody can drop me off to soccer training. So what happened? I ended up quitting soccer because nobody could take me to soccer. I was 13 or 14. It was very hard to go there, so I quit. Parents also to provide good criticism rather than just pointing fingers, but give the criticism in a way they can understand. Also, I think just making them more involved in family, so that the parent and the child are close, so they have a means of communication. Because when that is lacking, it's very hard for the young person to reach their parent if they have issues. So I believe, I think for the parent to be more closer to the children, they can have a very fulfilling relationship.
I see myself as both. So I came to Australia when I was very young, and so I grew up here as an Australian. However, my background is Sudanese. I speak Dinka, and my children will be Sudanese because I'm Sudanese. And at the end of the day, I do get told that I have to go back to my country, and people do look at me and they say that I'm not Australian. However, when I go into my community, people see that I speak English very fluently, and they know that I grew up here, so they call me Australian. So in both ways, I'm Australian and Sudanese, and they can conflict sometimes.
In this country, there are other things that our kids can get affected by. So we have to be careful of not to just use everything that we see in this country. There are good and there are bad. The same thing in our country back home in South Sudan. There are good ways and there are bad ways. So to be a good parent, you need to balance between two cultures. Not to take the Australian culture, not to take the South Sudanese culture in full. So I'm balancing, and that's the way that I'm using to bring up my kids. What I would tell parents in this country is to try not to use the same way that we were brought up back home, because sometimes the culture is different, the way of doing things and the way they are doing things in this country. So we have to learn to adjust ourselves, not to leave our culture or the way that we do our things, but there are little slight changes that we need to use so that we can fit into this community, and also for our kids to stick with us.
Sometimes as young people, we can also fail to realize that our parents, they go through a lot of struggles also, that sometimes that we may not see. I think just for young people to also just be a bit more open-minded also, that our parents, they come from a lot of war-torn countries, and when they came here, so the way they do things is different to how young people do things, and just I think for younger people to be just open-minded sometimes.
The main message here is not about giving up your South Sudanese culture. It is about acknowledging the cultural differences that exist. It is about respecting these cultural differences. It is about understanding that your children grew up and studied in Australia and are part of the Australian larger culture. While we can maintain our culture in Australia, we need to acknowledge that the youth and the elders are negotiating two cultures, that is, the Australian and South Sudanese cultures. And importantly, we need to accept that our young people are going through identity crisis and all require our support. Thank you for your time. We hope you enjoy watching the video.